Great to be here on this Friday. Kevin Thomas here with you. Glad you're making us a part of your day. So much to get to here on the show. Christian Gokel, admirably going to be filling in. I was trying not to give you a top billing credit here on 3 and Out, but
apparently
I will.
I want to apologize to the audience for the remix version of the intro I threw at him there. Sorry if I blow out your speakers.
But, hey, we're glad to be here on this Friday. We'll carry you into the weekend. We'll hear from Brandon Sudge, the Telegraph. We'll talk some Georgia football with him. We'll look at the SEC West ahead of SEC Media Days and more. The Open Championship going on. A lot of
Open
Brooks,
Championship.
DeChambeau back and forth. A little I like it. Some subtle digs.
Bryson can't stay out of his own way, man.
No, he can't. But, I mean, did you see the Brooks Koepka when he came off the course?
His driver's feeling fine,
yeah, my driver's good, man. We're good. So we'll get to that coming up. Little SEC trivia. Are we still going to do that? We'll see. See if my brain works here on a Friday. We'll get to that and more. But the big news as we start the second half for the Braves against Tampa Bay tonight, the Braves made a move. Joc Pederson, he's not in the lineup tonight yet. I will say yet because he may not be there to start. If he gets to the ballpark, he's getting in there. Got to get him in there. But obviously, that is a move that has been made. Joc Pederson for a minor league first baseman, Bryce Ball, who's got a lot of power and a low batting average. I think a pretty decent get there for not much give up if you're Alex Anthopoulos, and a guy that, while it does not replace Ronald Acuna, gives you at least somebody with the potential to hit it over the fence there in your outfield. Makes your lineup a little more dangerous, and I think gives you maybe a better picture next 4 or 5 days of what this team could be. Again, you're only 4 out. Christian, you're teetering on that. Are you in it? Are you out? And Alex Anthopoulos saying, look, our focus is on adding. You go out and make a move. We're not done. You're 4 games out. Right? So he's putting up signs of, hey, in the here and now, we're going for it. Now you got Tampa Bay and San Diego, followed by 4 games with the Phillies and 5 with the Mets heading towards the trade deadline. So in the next 2 weeks, you will know whether or not you're in it or out of it. But Joc Pederson has an option at the end of this year that you could pick up. So if Acuna's back, you can just flip him over and play outfield on the other side if need be. So all in all, I give that as a solid move by Alex Anthopoulos. You didn't give up much, and you got a major league caliber player who can help you right now and give you a better idea of, are we actually going to be able to close a 4-game lead, or does it simply not matter?
Well, again, I think you kind of mentioned it there. He's a really good power bat, better than anybody you have in the outfield right now in terms of in the batter's box, right? I think you got some pretty good defenders out there, but in the batter's box, scares you way more than anybody else you have out there. And what did you give up for it? A first baseman. And I know there's a whole lot of talk about Freddie Freeman moving on in the offseason, but Freddie Freeman reasserted during the All-Star game that he wanted to stay as an Atlanta Brave. I don't know if that's just coach speak from Freddie Freeman, and he has to say that, but I think all signs are pointing towards Freddie Freeman getting an extension with the Braves. So that being said, if you're a first baseman in the Atlanta farm system,
not anytime soon.
Yeah, it's going to be a while, guys. Like, I'm sorry, I hate to break this news to you, and I hope I'm not actually breaking news to you, but it's going to be a minute. Either A, maybe you need to start looking for a new team, or B, listen, maybe now's the time to try a new position.
Yeah. So again, I give a lot of credit to Alex Anthopoulos on that one. A lot of talk about Joey Gallo. And who's to say that doesn't potentially still get done? But right now, I think that's a little bit of an upgrade. I think he will get in the lineup tonight, potentially at some point, just so the Braves can get him in there and see what he's doing. I mean, this is why I say that. I think he's on a plane. It's probably going to be close, him even getting to the ballpark in time. But you got him to make an eval, put him out there as much as possible before the trade deadline to see where you're at with him in the lineup. Does he come in as a pinch hitter? Maybe. Does he come in the 5th, 6th inning as a defensive replacement and a hit the rest of the night? Maybe, but I do think you see him out there at some point tonight to get this process going in a big series for Atlanta. And Charlie Morton, I said this to somebody earlier today, Christian. I mean, Charlie Morton's going tonight. This is a big start for Charlie Morton, Drew Smyly in this series. Why? If they pitch well, good for Atlanta, right? Because they're giving you a chance to go out there and win every 5th day in their rotation and giving you a chance to win. If they pitch well, good for Atlanta because their trade value will remain up and say, hey, they're pitching well in the second half. So I think you want those guys to go out and pitch well. and again, I think if you take 2 out of 3 from Tampa, that's a win. And as long as you can keep within arm's reach of the Mets, I think you have to feel like you're still in it. I mean, if by the time we talk on Monday, the Braves are 3 out, I mean, you can't be a seller at that point.
Sure.
Going into a San Diego series. So I think this is a kind of a good first little move here, but it doesn't overextend you in any way if you come out and go 0-3 versus Tampa Bay and you find yourself 6 games out come Monday and you say, okay, we kind of went the wrong direction. Let's see what we can do against San Diego. It hasn't totally ruined you either. You're like, oh, we kind of went chips in and now we wish we maybe hadn't done that. So this is not one of those moves that just kills you for the long term, and you didn't really give up a lot to make this happen.
Yeah, I think Mark Bowman had a great statement on Twitter. He said they have 15 games before the deadline, 4 against the Phillies and 5 against the Mets. They'll know where they stand in the division race. With that said, I know how the team plays over the 6 games versus Tampa Bay, and San Diego will provide a good feel for whether they sell or buy more. So I think what he's basically saying there is next 6 games, the next 2 series, this is going to give you that feel as whether the Braves are buyers or sellers. Yeah. But you have 15 games until the All-Star, or it's not All-Star break,
deadline.
It's still a trade deadline. You know, I think we're all very aware that the All-Star break just happened.
Yeah, I think
until the trade deadline. So you have some room and some time, and you have a sample size left to gather.
I think if you come out and play well in those 2 series and you're still hanging around 500, that's a good sign. Like if you can play these next 7 at 4-3, to me, that's a good sign you're playing good baseball, right? Because I think if you can get above 500, we've seen the St. Louis Cardinals make the playoffs at, I think they were actually a little less than 500. They were like an 81 win team one year, made the playoffs. That may not be possible, but I think as long as you're playing above 500 baseball, you'll be within that reach distance of the New York Mets. Because as good as the Mets have been and the perception out there of Jacob deGrom and all that, I mean, they are just a little bit over 500. I mean, so it's not like you expect them to start going on a 700%, win percentage the rest of the way. They're going to probably be a little bit around a 500 team. And if you can play a little bit better than them over the course of 2 months, you will track them down. There's no question. But again, I do think this is the eval period of, are you all in or you're not? Because again, if Ronald Acuna is healthy, and if Huascar Ynoa is coming back, and if you didn't have the off the field issues, with Marcell Ozuna, and he was just coming back from his injury, I think the Braves are chips in. I think they're pushing in to the table because it's probably like, hey, our lineup is going to be better. We're healthy. We've got a much more potent lineup. We've underachieved. We're still there. I think this is interesting because if it doesn't work, you're like, oh, our lineup's just not quite there with the injuries and guys we're missing, but we're in it. I said, that's kind of the dichotomy Alex Anthopoulos is. He's like, we're adding now, but I think they're looking at this weekend and into next week to say, yeah, we're in it, but do we have staying power with the lineup we currently have to push chips in the table, or do we kind of sit back?
It does crack me up though, because Kevin, literally the Chicago Cubs have 1 more loss than the Atlanta Braves. And they're fire selling their team up here.
Yeah, they're Craig Kimbrell's going to be somewhere.
Yeah, they're throwing in the towel for the season. They're selling everybody, and they're
talks about Chris Bryant getting traded.
A half game behind the Atlanta Braves in the standings,
but they're a much different division.
But the Braves 4 games back after the All-Star break. Chicago's 8 games back, and they've been kind of on a downward trajectory. Whereas it's really seemed like the Braves have just been stuck in neutral all season. And so I think it's an interesting decision from Alex Anthopoulos. You go out there, don't give up much to bring in Joc Pederson. And I think, like you said, Kevin, you get him for 5 games coming up, 5 out of the next 6 games. The offense can come to life a little bit. Because not to speak ill of someone who got hurt, but even with Ronald Acuna, there wasn't a whole lot of offense going on for the Atlanta Braves. So I don't think you could go anywhere but up offensively for the Braves. So if the offense comes out, you have 2 All-Stars batting 2-3. If you come out swinging the bats and putting up some runs, I think all of a sudden you're looking at adding some pieces. Now, you adding bullpen pieces or are you adding another bat? Because I think another bat has to be the number 1 priority for the Braves. I think you have enough talent that just hasn't performed in the bullpen, right? You still have all those guys. You have the Tyler Matzeks and you have the Luke Jacksons who have performed in the past. They just haven't performed so far this year. So you have the arms. You don't have the bats.
Yeah, and I guess, do you feel you're a second half team? I know a lot of people have been saying Charlie Morton, traditionally better second half pitcher. Do you have that extra gear to kick into here as a team in this second half? Do you believe they have it? I have said they have underachieved all season. That was obviously also before Ronald Acuna goes out for the rest of the year. Marcell Ozuna has his off the field problems, and you've been littered with the injury bug throughout the pitching staff. But I feel like Will Smith is better than he has pitched, right? For what he's done.
Yep.
I feel like Tyler Matzek's a guy that could be a second half guy. Maybe you overused him a little bit in the first half.
AJ Minter,
a second half guy. So are these guys that got off to rough starts set to lock it up a little bit in the second half? And do you feel there's an extra gear left to get?
Well, and also you're getting some guys back. Tukey, he's just got activated. Because I know Ian Anderson going out, but it's from what we've heard more
backdated,
and it's more of a cautionary thing out of the Atlanta Braves. So you have Tukey coming back. Huascar Ynoa should be coming back. And before he punched the damn bench, he was an all-star level pitcher, right? And so if you get him back, I think you have the arms. There's nowhere you can really look. We kind of talked about this yesterday. Prior to September for a bat, right? If you want to bring up one of those AAA guys, but you don't want to lose that year on their contracts,
the only one you can use is Christian Pache because he's already been up.
Sure,
That's
but
it.
like if you don't want to waste that year of service time for a Drew Waters or someone like that,
right?
Trying to bring them up, you have to tread water for the next month and a half. Do you want to do that, or do you want to go out there and try to make a deal to bring somebody else in? I think you need to try to get one more bat. If you're really in on trying to win this division and keep this streak alive, if you're really in on that, you got to bring in another bat. I think there's enough forward momentum.
Are they all in, or are they just in like a couple of toes? Like, listen, obviously they're not out, but are they just getting ankle deep right now?
If I'm talking to Alex Anthopoulos, I'm telling him, listen, man, we can't leverage the farm system on the rest of this season, right? But would it be worth looking at some guys that probably aren't going to play? Because listen, you only have so many outfield spots, and Ronald Acuna is going to come back, right? So you only have so many outfield spots. Is it worth it to look at some of these guys? I'm not trading a pitcher, period, because we've seen over this past season with injuries, you don't know if Mike Soroka is ever going to pitch again, right? So I'm not trading any pitchers. I think that's way too valuable. But am I trading some of my future prospects to get a guy that's under contract for the next couple of years? Probably. Because you don't know what your center field looks like. You don't know what your right field looks like going forward. So I'm not leveraging the farm system to go after it this year. But I do think there'd be worth looking at a few guys that maybe have just developed as much as they're going to develop, and they can help out another farm system and move them for someone. But I'm not hitting a mammoth trade.
Yeah, I not until you really believe you're all in. Yeah, I agree with you. If this thing gets down to 2 or 1 game by the end of the month, maybe I change my tune a little bit. But yeah, I'm not going all in until I feel like it is really within grasp right there. And I'm not, as you said, certainly there are certain guys I still deem as untradeable.
You go 6-0 over the next couple of games, and you're in first place in the division.
That's a different story.
It's a pipe dream.
It is, but that's
also the Braves are due to go on one of these runs. They have not gone on a win, like a significant win streak. What are the most games they've won this year?
You're setting them up to lose like 8-1 tonight or something.
But is it 3? Is that the longest win streak?
Is 4? Yeah,
4.
4. Yeah.
So they have not had one of those stretches yet. If you could do that sometime in the next couple of weeks, where you rip off 5 in a row, and all of a sudden you're in first place in the division, then are you bought in?
I think that's a different argument. Yeah,
I think bought in.
I'm still not bought into where I'm dumping.
I don't think
big time players that are coming
end
down.
Of story. I'm willing to dump my farm system to go after somebody for this year. It just feels like a cursed season.
Yeah.
Right. I'm not willing to leverage the future of my franchise for this season, but I'm willing to throw a couple prospects at a bat.
I think if you're
and
there,
then ride it out, man.
I think if you're there, you got to go for it a little bit and show that you are all in, especially if you're in first place. You can't be a seller at that point and say, hey, yeah, we're just looking. No, you have to go for it. Then we'll see what Alex Anthopoulos does. But right out of the gate, boom, Joc Pederson move. He'll be at the ballpark at some point tonight. Don't know if he'll play. He's not in the starting lineup for sure as the Braves get ready to take on Tampa Bay. We'll come back. We got more to come here on 3 Now, including SEC West storylines, the SEC Media Days next week. We'll get to that and more. It's 3 and Out on the Southern Pigskin Radio Network. Good to have you back here, 3 and Out on this Friday. Kevin Thomas, Christian Gokel here with you. Thanks for making us a part of your day. SEC Media Days coming up next week. Christian, in the final hour, we have gotten the exclusive. What are the walk-up music for all the coaches in the SEC? We have gotten that. Excited. It's coming up in the final hour.
Oh, man, we got some bangers, too. So I've seen some of the list for some of the coaches.
Yes.
For their walk-up music.
We are going to break it here, 5 o'clock.
Very apropos.
5 o'clock, walk-up music for the coaches, or I guess walk-out music for the coaches there at SEC
walk
Media Days.
in because they're walking into the hotel.
There you go, into the Winfrey there in Hoover. We'll have that for you in the final hour.
The Hyatt Regency Birmingham Winfrey Hoover. It's got a lot of hyphens in there.
It's a great place to be, though, when all the SEC descends or ascends on
where else would you do SEC Media Days besides a conference center / hotel / mall?
In the SEC, that's the best place to do it, man. You got it all. Like I said, we've been there a number of times. It's a great spot. Like, people kind of joke. So I've asked people before, they're like, so when you do Radio Row, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm sitting in the walkway of the hotel. They're like, what do you mean? I'm like, well, upstairs is the rooms, right? And upstairs is like a banquet, facilities where they have the breakout rooms and the big media rooms. And down where Radio Row is, it's like anybody can walk through. And on one end is, the mall with all your food courts and all that. I think we actually sit in front of a steakhouse there on Radio Row. And so people
that's
are
where you get your best guests from when they're just sort of sitting at the bar trying to take a break.
Hey man, you just had a ribeye. Come talk radio with us for just a little bit. So yeah, that's it's really a great spot to do it there in Birmingham. I know they did in Atlanta. They did it right next to the College Football Hall of Fame. That was good, but just not quite the same feel as you said, a hotel / mall in Birmingham, Alabama.
It's not quite the same.
It's not the same.
It ain't, man.
That's all I'm going to say about that. But we go into it next week. What are some of the storylines that you're looking at? I know, Christian, you're going to be on hand for us there next week. When it comes to the SEC West, the easy gig is to say, obviously, how good is Alabama? But what is the storyline that you're looking to kind of see how it plays out next week in regards to the SEC West?
I think the biggest one is the one everyone's talking about. Who's that competitor to Alabama in the SEC West? Is it Texas A&M? Are they legit ready to take that step and be the top competitor? But for me, it's kind of the rebound seasons for some teams, right? LSU, I'm looking at them, and they had an amazingly rough season last year, right? You have people getting hurt. Obviously, you lost a ton of players to the draft, a historic amount of players to the draft, but you still have a ton of NFL talent, right? Like, I've told you to list off, you just get 2 players from a defense, right? And you're going to rank it via that. If I said Eli Ricks and Derek Stingley Jr., that'd probably be really close to the top of the list, right?
Yeah.
So you have that. That's your base on defense. You have some talent on the defensive line. You've had some transfers on defense as well that should help solidify. And also, the biggest factor is Bo Pelini's not your defensive coordinator anymore. Yeah. So I think that's really going to help them out at LSU. Offensively, I think it's going to be Max Johnson for them. So I think it's the rebound season for LSU, for Mississippi State, right? Because they started really hot, upsetting LSU to start the season, and then they kind of fell off from there. They've actually had a full offseason to put Mike Leach's game plan in. What can we see out of them as a rebound season? Auburn. Offense was atrocious last year. Now you get a new head coach, new OC, new DC. What are we going to see out of Auburn? So I think it's the rebounds really are the biggest storylines for me. But the one I don't think we're talking about enough, because I think we just kind of are used to it at this point, and we haven't seen anything other than success, is Alabama is replacing a historic amount of talent, right?
But what does it say that nobody cares? Like,
I'm saying, you know what I mean? The consistency.
It's like, hey, Alabama lost a huge pile of dudes to the NFL. Yeah, and like they may have one of the top running backs in the league. By the time it's all done, Bryce Young might be one of the top 3 quarterbacks or so in the SEC. Their receiving core, it's going to be really good. I think it's one of those where, as Ben always talks about the benefit of the doubt, I think Alabama just gets that, where it's like, dude, you have Nick Saban. Like, and how many years has it been like, oh no, spring practice, fall practice, they lost their starting middle linebacker to a torn ACL, and the guy that replaces him is like second team all SEC. So it's like, it's one of those things where I think even if they're replacing, these guys are 4- and 5-star recruits that have been practicing against 4- and 5-star recruits. They simply don't get the playing time because they're behind 4 and 5 star recruits, and they come in when it's 42-3,
Oh, yeah.
and they get their second half worth of snaps and probably still get more playing time than some guys down the depth chart at other schools. But I think to me, Alabama is like, I don't even, it sounds ridiculous because you're like, don't even question it. But I mean, that's the track record of Nick Saban. Is why would you even, why do you question it? On defense, especially, it's like when they're weak, they're still not weak. You know what I mean? It's like, hey, what are they rough?
I think the defense might actually be the better unit this year, as crazy as that sounds.
That's not crazy. But you know, I think when you look at it on the defense, it's like, so even when there's been questions at Alabama about offense and like, hey, we're on our like 8th offensive coordinator in 8 years, and we're worried about what we're going to do. Like the defense is just,
well, yeah. And also you look at
like,
it,
even like the bad Alabama defenses where they've gotten injury riddled are still like top 4 in the SEC. So it's like, they're going to be dominating on that side of the ball.
And this hasn't got enough coverage. Alabama lost their offensive line coach and offensive coordinator, right?
I don't think it matters.
No, but I'm saying Steve Sarkisian takes the head coaching job at Texas. You also lose your O-line coach. Okay, who do you replace him with? 2 coaches that have very recently been the head football coaches for NFL teams in the AFC Championship game. Right?
Yeah,
you go get Bill O'Brien to be your OC. Oh, and Doug Marrone, who took the Jacksonville Jaguars to the AFC Championship and a play away from the Super Bowl, is your offensive line coach. Right? So that's who he replaced it with. I mean, a lot of people might say maybe an upgrade, but I think most people are getting stuck on the personnel, right? You have a new quarterback coming in, right? You're replacing your 2 top receivers. You're replacing your running back. That literally happened to LSU. You lost your quarterback, but you lost your 2 top wide receivers, and you lost your SEC leading rusher in Clyde Edwards-Helaire and your OC, right? So when all that happens, LSU falls off a cliff. But because of Nick Saban and because of Alabama, we just expect it to be business as usual in the college football playoff again. I don't know that we're paying enough attention to the amount of talent. Listen, one day.
I mean, do you think they're going to lose two or 3 games? No, that's what I'm saying.
But one day, Alabama's not going to win the SEC West. Like it's
I get it.
One day.
Just did it 2 years ago.
I feel like Aragorn at the end of Lord of the Rings. One day the will of man will fall, but not this day.
But it ain't today.
But not this day.
Look, and again, I think Texas A&M wants
the strength of man. Yeah,
Texas A&M wants to be that team that does it. And again, Haynes King might turn out to be a great quarterback, but Haynes King is very young and does not have a whole lot of experience. I mean, are you going to take a guy that's basically never played at Texas A&M and you're going to go dethrone the beast? I'm not saying it won't happen. Maybe if he's a sophomore, junior, like later down the road, but like you think it's going to happen now? I think that's a big ask. Well, maybe it will, but I just don't see Texas A&M as being the one to kick the beast in the teeth. I think they'll be close. I just don't think they.
I think Jimbo Fisher messed up when he was at that quarterbacks club meeting, and he said, "Oh, we're gonna."
What is he supposed to say?
We're gonna beat the hell out of Nick Saban. Like,
but what are you supposed to say? You can't go there and go, "Yeah, we're gonna get."
I've spoken to a couple of football coaches about this. They're like, "Look, what?" He said the same thing. What do you want him to say? That they're gonna lose? Listen, for 128 other FBS coaches, say you're gonna beat the hell out of them. But if there's one guy they ask you about, and that guy's Nick Saban, you know what you say about his team? Got nothing but respect for Coach Saban and his team. Really looking forward.
But you don't say that in a room full of boosters going, bro, we're giving you $70 million.
You say it in a room that has a microphone and a camcorder in it. That's what you say.
Do we still do camcorders?
Yeah, we still do camcorders, Kevin. But no, you absolutely
get the dad tripod.
Absolutely give the coach speak when they ask you about Nick Saban. Anyone else you want to talk bleep about? Sure. You don't bring it up with Nick Saban.
That's a blast from the past. Get your camcorders
out, baby,
with the tripod
and the cassette,
a camera that weighs 600 pounds,
and make sure that
and
tape
Dad's
is rewound.
Just over there, like, come on, do it. As we get to just great footage.
Yeah, and they had to clip that tape up and send it into the SEC network so they could play it, and Nick Saban could hear it.
Get your
camcorders ready.
Get your camcorders out.
Hope
all of you brought your Discmans as well, and we'll
I got that no skip.
Get your earbuds wired, of
course.
What?
Yeah, wired. No, not buds. Well, headphones.
Yeah, but they had the back of the day. You did have the little wired ones where you could shove in your ear.
That's fair.
While you're running. I mean, think about this. Back in the day, fellas, when you were, rocking it in the 90s, if you wanted to go run down the street, you just hit up the phone, slide it in your pocket, with the wireless earbuds and you go to running. You want to go running back in the 90s? You either got a boom box that was the size of the front of your car, or you got a Discman, which is, the size of a small purse that hung off your hip and listened to CDs running down the road. Nostalgia. We got more to come.
We love it. SEC West.
Yes,
Media
SEC
Days, baby.
West. Yeah, we'll come back. It's 3 and Out on the Southern Pigskin Radio Network. Good to have you here, 3 and Out, all across the Southern Pigskin Radio Network. Kevin Thomas, Christian Gokel here on this Friday afternoon. Glad you were with us. Braves and Tampa Bay coming up a little bit later tonight as they start the second half. Joc Pederson not in the lineup. Do expect him to be at the ballpark at some point during the game tonight. We'll see if he gets in at any point this evening. But obviously we'll have him going in throughout the remainder of the Tampa Bay series. We'll talk some Braves baseball coming up. Top of hour number 2. So with that being said, we'll take 3 now here on 3 and Out. And Christian Gokel will take over take 3, which I think he was struggling a little bit today because you handed me the question for take 1 and it said Barry.
Kevin, listen.
Question mark. I was like, what, Barry White?
Yes.
Barry Alvarez? Barry Bonds? What are we doing?
Sometimes, Kevin, you just need to put a name down and that's all you need. Single name athletes.
There's a lot of them.
Pele, Brady, Barry. I don't know. Barry might be tough because
there's too many of them.
There's so many Barrys. But, I mean, Barry Bonds or Barry Sanders. We're talking about Barry Sanders today because it is his birthday. 52 years young today. But my question about Barry Sanders for take 1, Kevin, is he the greatest running back to ever grace this earth?
Wow. I know he gets hampered because he played for Detroit. And it was
most people do.
And the thing is, had he played for anybody else, might he have played 4 or 5 more years of high-level football? Very good possibility.
Yeah.
I'm going to go and say no, but it's close. I mean,
Squeeze me? Who's better?
No Sweetness?
Yeah.
Hasn't a trophy named after him? Also, won a Super Bowl?
Yeah, it's just because he played before Barry Sanders. And also, Barry Sanders would have a Super Bowl if he played for one of the best franchises ever.
So, well, I mean, what have the Bears been since old Sweetness?
Well, but you got to talk about it at the time. They had the best defense to ever play football.
So
had
the best running back in the league?
What's the best thing the Lions ever had?
GM and Ford.
Yeah, I was about to say that's taken a hit recently. So
yeah, muscle cars. No, I think Barry Sanders is very, very good. He's got the highlight reels. I just think for my money, I think Sweetness would probably be up there ahead of him. If you're talking the totality of college and pro. Yeah, Barry Sanders probably no doubt in my top 2 or 3 for sure. But I will say Walter Payton ahead of him.
All right, I'm just gonna.
I know it sounds like you don't agree. So
I'm not trying to
every time I say something, I feel like you're thinking I'm being disrespectful.
I'm allowed to have a different opinion, Kevin. Jeez, listen. This is something people forget: is you're allowed to have a different opinion from someone and still be their friend. So we can still be friends.
We must fight to the death on every point.
So
if we disagree, outside we go and duke it out.
I know Walter Payton has a trophy named after him. Yes. But it's the equivalent to what?
The Heisman Trophy.
The Heisman Trophy, right? Well, Barry Sanders has one of those. 1988 Heisman Trophy winner, also the Maxwell Award, Walter Camp Award winner.
I mean, if you're Walter Payton, can you win the Walter Payton Award?
Unanimous All-American Award. Sure. So we're moving on from there. I mean, after he ran for 2,800 yards and 42 touchdowns in 12 games, let's move on from there to when he was a 3rd overall pick in the NFL draft and then lived up to all of the hype. Played 10 years, 1989 to 1998, was a Pro Bowler every single year he was in the league. One of my favorite stats to say, Kevin, never not a Pro Bowler. Okay, so you're like, Kevin's over here, counter argument. Oh, what does a Pro Bowl mean? Pro Bowls are fake. Yeah, anybody can get into a Pro Bowl. Okay, well, how about the most valuable player in 1997? And think about the era of NFL he was playing in with the amazing Cowboys and 49ers teams. Played for Detroit and was the MVP of the National Football League in 1997. 2-time NFL Offensive Player of the Year in 1994 and 1997 as well. Offensive Rookie of the Year in 1989. All right, you don't care about Pro Bowls, Kevin? How about 6 first-team All-Pros? Does that do anything for you? A member of the 2,000-yard club, led the NFL in rushing 4 different years. Anything? Nothing? Best running back ever, Kevin. There's never been a better running back set on earth than Barry Sanders.
Okay. He's behind Walter Payton in the line, though.
And
you got to say, excuse me, sir.
Kevin, better running back, Barry Sanders or Bo Jackson?
I mean,
Answer the question, Kevin.
So I know where your pure ability.
I know where your heart wants to go.
On just pure ability.
You want to hear me make Kevin mad? Bo wasn't even better than Herschel.
That's you want to fight over something? Yeah, we can fight over
55 less yards per game in college, but yeah, let's argue about it.
He was also in the backfield with 2 other guys taking balls from him.
You know who doesn't need 2 other guys in the backfield with him? Herschel.
They've got the hardware.
Much like Kevin and myself, great rivalry brewing here in golf. I don't know if it's brewing anymore or if it's brewed. Like if it's ready.
It's at peak percolation.
Bryson DeChambeau and Brooks Koepka going back and forth, but it started again yesterday after Bryson DeChambeau shot a +1 in round 1 of the Open Championship out in Sandwich, England. Kevin. Sandwich, England. England.
Yeah.
Bryson DeChambeau. I always wanted to make sure I wasn't disrespecting like Scotland or Ireland. It's in England this year, but Bryson DeChambeau, he had a rough round. Couldn't really find the fairway. Even though he did get 11 greens in regulation, but he could not find the fairway. After the round, they were asking about it. He said, "Well, if I can hit it down the middle of the fairway, that's great. But the driver right now, the driver sucks."
If I had $1 for every time I said that about my golf, if I could just hit it straight, like. That's kind of the opposite.
But what I love here that Bryson DeChambeau did is what we all do when we screw up something or we suck at something. It's not our fault.
No, of course not.
It's the equipment. If you overcook your steak, the grill I can't find an even temperature on the grill, and what do you want me to do with that? I mean, it is what it is. So just I'm trying. If I had a better grill,
doggone spatula
it'd be a better steak. If you get owned playing MLB The Show, Kevin, it's not your fault.
No,
the game was lagging.
Yeah, the servers are bad.
My dang kids changed the settings again.
No,
it's never your fault. So Bryson DeChambeau, I think, doing what we all do. It's not my fault. It's my driver's fault.
It's true. The stupid wrench won't let me get the bolt off. It's not my fault. It's not because I have no grip strength and I'm weak. It's the wrench's fault. No, that's 100% accurate, and that makes you feel better. Look, it happens all the time. Kickers miss field goals in the NFL. They look back.
It's the holder.
They look at the little plot of dirt where the ball was.
Oh, God, that's so true.
Guys strike out. How many times do you see guys strike out on TV and immediately look at the bat like, was there a hole in this thing?
It's true.
No, you missed some filthiness.
I do love the tennis players too, where they look at the tennis ball and just throw it back. I'm fascinated to know what is the criteria they're looking for.
Extra fuzzy
from that tennis ball. They're like,
this thing looks extra fuzzy. Can't have it.
Let me get that out of there. A little too much fluff on there. It's got a stray green hair on there. Bryce, but then Brooks Koepka.
Oh, this is a classic troll job. I love this part.
After the round today, say, hey, my driver feels fine.
I don't know about him, man. My driver's good.
I did love the Cobra reps coming out and ripping Brooks.
Yeah, basically, Bryson is like, well, every once in a while, you're a 2-year-old, he'll throw a little temper tantrum. He doesn't really mean it, but And
then old Bryson had to issue an apology. It's not the driver, it's me.
Yeah.
So
I stink.
Some self-actualization there from Bryson DeChambeau. It was my fault. All right, take 3, Kevin. I'm really excited for this one because this was kind of trending on Twitter yesterday where a guy tweeted out, he said, listen, people can just sit around and name old sports names and just have an amazing time, right? So my question to you, what sports name just brings a smile to your face when you say or hear it?
Oh, there's just all kinds of ones, man, where you could just a lot of baseball ones. You have like Wally Backman. It's like,
I think baseball.
You just start laughing when you say it.
I think baseball's the best for this.
Yeah, I mean, because baseball, there's been so many guys that played, but you're like, and Wally Backman was a good player, but I mean, just different guys who were they weren't stars, but they were around for a decade and a half, and they were they were playing. So you get some of those guys, but yeah, just old baseball names are, Otis Nixon. You start laughing when you say that, Otis Nixon. Yeah.
Give me some more. Come on.
I mean, you do it all the time. I can sit here and name them off for the Braves. It's like
I do like doing it with Falcons quarterbacks.
Odeby McDowell. Yes, that's.
I smile in pain with the former Falcons quarterbacks like Joey Harrington, Chris Redmond. It hurts.
Who was the guy that played safety back in the day for the Falcons, in the late 90s? He was. I'll have to look it up in the break. I'm drawing a blank.
That's fine.
I can't.
No one.
Think,
no one. I was giving you a chance. But no, I think the best thing to do is just go look at old Braves rosters.
Sure.
Like Rick Ankiel makes me smile.
People forget like he was on the Braves.
Eric Hinsky. See, look at the smile on Kevin's face.
I enjoy these because like Eric Hinsky looks like a guy playing baseball who really wants to fight.
How about a Troy Gloss reference? Just getting that belt buckle around and smashing home runs. Did he have to loosen that belt buckle a few times throughout the season?
Probably.
It happens, man. It happens.
I'm trying to
no one
think
else.
of,
Well, how about a nice Jair Jurgens reference for you?
Yeah. Jair Jurgens once got hurt falling down the stairs.
Listen, it happens. I'll leave you with this one, Kevin. Kyle Farnsworth.
He was a guy that loved to fight. Loved to fight.
Did you find the safety?
I didn't. I'm going to have to keep looking.
Right,
I cannot think of his name.
Well, that's a tease. That's a nice tease.
I will bring it back in the next segment if I can find it between now and the next segment. We will talk Braves baseball at the top of next hour, which is why we have take 3 right now. So we'll come back. I'll try to remember who the heck I'm talking about with the Falcons at
safety in the 90s.
And yes, and more. It's 3 and Out on the Southern Pigskin Radio Network. Good to have you back here, 3 and Out on the Southern Pigskin Radio Network. The name I finally was thinking of, Scott Case, Atlanta Falcons safety from back in the early 90s. That's just like a random throw-in. So I put that out there.
Yeah, I love it.
When I finally looked it
nice
up.
Peerless Price reference.
Yeah, I had to go through and, I went to the historical rosters. I'm like, if I just see the name, I'll know. But
Doug Craig writing in on Facebook says one that makes him smile, Bumper Pool.
that is, I mean, dude, that is
That's
like
a great
the first
name.
time I saw that, I was like, that is like the best name ever for a. I mean, the only thing better I've noticed for like football guys is like if you're a linebacker or something, your last name is Speed, like that works.
Hey, Georgia's got one on there. He's a DB.
Well, I mean,
his last name's Speed.
That's still a good name.
But Crevassier Smoke.
You better be fast. If your name is Crevassier Smoke and you're like a D lineman who runs a 5-second 40, like doesn't really work. But if you got the smoke, then there you go.
Love the safety at Auburn, Smoke Monday.
That is true. Yeah, good stuff. No, there's some. We are in an age of some good names when it comes to
LSU has a wide
athletes.
receiver commit named Dakotas Crawford. Dakotas.
Okay,
that's amazing.
I mean, who is it? Alabama that has the guy whose name like on the official
Kool-Aid,
roster? His name's Kool-Aid.
Yeah, that is his.
I don't know. Is that his real name or is that just
no? I think that's his nickname, but he got Alabama to list him
put it
as
that his name.
Could be wrong. If I'm wrong, don't come at me.
Kool-Aid. So yeah, those are things that make you smile, man.
But he's a 5-star. He's a 5-star. Another one in Alabama.
I mean, with a name like Kool-Aid, you really have to be a 5-star.
It's probably more rare that if I say he wasn't a 5-star at Alabama, you'd be like, oh, okay, that narrows it down.
Yeah. Oh, that guy.
That narrows it down.
How did he get in?
That's right.
How did he get past
long snapper? I know
the
they don't
censors?
Yeah.
They were only supposed to have 4 and 5 stars there at Alabama. But no, look, great sports names are always out there. Those always make me smile. That was a good question there for Take 3. We'll hear from Doc Herbert, Platinum Sombrero Podcast. Doc will tell us about Joc Pederson, who the Braves signed or traded for last night, and he will not be in the starting lineup tonight. I think he will be at the ballpark sometime during the game, so we might see him tonight. But at the very least, we'll see him tomorrow in the lineup. But a nice little trade there. We'll talk about with Doc, what are the next potential moves the Braves could be looking at if they are indeed focusing on adding, as Alex Anthopoulos said. So we'll talk to Doc about that coming up next hour. Also, Brandon Sudge with the Telegraph. We'll talk some Georgia football with him. We'll look at the quarterback situation. Obviously, JT Daniels, everybody riding high on him. What happens if he goes down? Who's the next guy in line? And does he step in with no drop-off after him? So I think will be interesting to talk about some of that. The receivers who are going to step up here during the fall workouts and more. So look at the chat with Brandon Sudge about that. And then Christian going to fry my brain with a little SEC trivia next hour as well.
Getting you ready for media days, baby.
Yeah, not looking forward to that at all. This is 3 and Out. Hit us up on Twitter at Pigskin Radio, at Pigskin Radio. We're coming right back. Doc Herbert talking some Braves baseball next here on 3 and Out. Good to have you along 3 and Out, hour number 2 on this Friday. We'll hear from Brandon Sudge from The Telegraph. We'll talk some Georgia football with him coming up in just a little bit. Christian will try to, I guess, push my brain to its limits if he hasn't pushed it already there.
I'm going to take it there.
With a little SEC trivia. But big move last night by Alex Anthopoulos and the Braves. They get Joc Pederson coming in, and here to tell us about that is Doc Herbert from the Platinum Sombrero podcast. Doc, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm doing good, guys. Good to be back. I've missed you.
Hey, well, we appreciate you coming back on with us. And I know Alex Anthopoulos saying, look, we're focusing on adding right now. Braves kind of in that interesting spot of are they in it, are they out of it? Joc Pederson seems like a good, solid, safe move to kind of keep gauging the waters here.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I mean, obviously losing Acuna is devastating, but being able to go out and get somebody like Joc, he immediately becomes the best outfielder you've got on your team. He's going to take over for Ronald in right field. I would assume that it's going to be like it was in Chicago, where instead of just playing against righties, where that's where a lot of his power comes from, that he's going to play against lefties as well. That may not be ideal, but we beggars kind of can't be choosers right now. Our outfield has been a giant patchwork all year. So I like the move. It helps the team stay afloat and kind of get a better idea of whether or not they just haven't hit their hot streak yet somehow 89 games into the season, or if they just don't have the chemistry this year and they need to start looking ahead to see who they can flip to get some pieces for next year.
Doc, this felt very, I don't want to say easy, but it felt safe with this trade. You give up a first baseman product, you have a future Hall of Famer at first base for you, so you really don't feel like you gave up too much to bring Joc Pederson in. But if I had to imagine going forward, say you win 4 out of the next 6 and you're still in contention in NL East and you decide, all right, we're going for it, then I feel like those trades start to get a little bit worrying when you start talking about leveraging the farm system for the Braves. Do you see Alex Anthopoulos going that route if they're, say, 2 games back in the next week, or do you think he's going to play it safe the rest of the season regardless?
I think the next couple of games, you've got 3 against the Rays and then 3 against the Padres, and that's no easy task for either. I think that if this team can kind of all buckle down and all really get to the point where instead of just relying on the home run, where it looks like they've got signs of life, it looks like it's the type of lineup where they can string together 5 or 6 singles or doubles together and generate runs that way, that's a lot more viable than just hitting home runs. So I think it's going to take more of an example of the team kind of giving itself a facelift, because, you know, just because the Mets haven't run away with it yet doesn't necessarily mean this team is good enough to catch them. And I think Anthopoulos knows that. I would not be surprised if the Braves, let's say they win 4 out of 6 against the Rays and Padres, then after that they play the Phillies and Mets and they can really make some headway in the division that way. I wouldn't be surprised to see Anthopoulos make some kind of creative moves that are geared a little bit more towards sustaining for next year when you have Acuna back. Which Pederson technically is one of them because he has an option for next year. But in all of his time in Atlanta, you look at Alex when he was with the Blue Jays, there's nobody he wouldn't trade. He would trade everything that wasn't nailed down, and even a couple of things that were. And ever since he came to Atlanta, I mean, the biggest prospect that he's traded was Colby Allard. So, and this isn't a small sample size either. It's been 4 seasons that this has been the case. So as much as I think that he's going to want to swing for the fences and say, all right, we're going to trade Drew Waters because it will allow us to get somebody who can really, really help our team. He just hasn't been that guy since he came to Atlanta. So truthfully, I don't know.
Talking with Doc Herbert, Platinum Sombrero podcast, and you look at if the Braves become sellers. Let's say it goes the other direction. What do they have to sell? And again, because I say that, obviously, if you want to keep in a contending team together, knowing Acuna is coming back, I would imagine working on a Freddie Freeman deal is imperative. Albies and Riley seem to be like they're not going anywhere. Your 2 catchers you had opening day are both hurt or in the minors. Like, what is it that you have to sell that could get you something viable in return?
Well, relievers are always really, really good pieces. Like the bullpens are the easiest thing to upgrade at the trade deadline. So you look at a guy like Chris Martin, who has got a track record of ever since he came back from Japan when he went to the Rangers and then when he came over here in that deal for Colby Adler that I was just talking about. He's somebody I think he could net you at least a decent prospect. Relievers don't get what they did in the days when Aroldis Chapman and Andrew Miller were being traded probably about 5 years ago. Ideally, you would say Shane Green, but he hasn't really performed. The problem, he's making so little money that he would probably be worth more than Martin. He just isn't pitching very well. Charlie Morton is a guy that has been, over the past 8 to 10 starts or so, he's been really, really good. He's got a track record of success. The only thing you wonder about Charlie is he's always been very particular about where he plays. When he signed with the Rays a couple years ago, it allowed him to be close to home, which is also why he came to Atlanta. And he might have some say over that. But that might be something that he talked to Alex about before the season. I wonder about Will Smith, truthfully. We look at him, and he's been inconsistent, but sometimes he's also been really good. He has a long track record of when he was with the Giants of being pretty good. So he's got some time and money left on his deal. You might be able to work that out for somebody who's a current position player, not a prospect, somebody who you could lean on next year to kind of offset some money. From the position player standpoint, I feel like Dansby is the most likely to be dealt. It seems like he's been with the team for forever, and he just is what he is. We've always been waiting for him to take that next step. Sometimes he looks like he's ready to, and sometimes he looks like he's ready to go back to AAA. The reason why I would say that now is twofold. Number one, because next year will be his final year of arbitration before he becomes an outright free agent. He's going to be asking for $10 million or so just based on the progression of his salaries in recent years. I can't see the Braves wanting to actually give him that based on the way he's performing this year. And also, I know he's playing left field now, but Orlando Arcia is a shortstop. So not only do you have somebody that you might be able to flip for pieces that you might not have intention of bringing back, but you have somebody that you could plug in right now. It would do some interesting things to your outfield, but if you're in a situation to sell Dansby Swanson, then you're probably just riding out the rest of the year and hoping for a high draft pick in 2022.
Doc, we've been talking so much about off-the-field stuff, right? Talking about deals, talking about injuries. The Braves play an actual baseball game tonight, which I think is going to be refreshing for a majority of the fans out there. And we can only talk about the guys who are on the roster right now. Who needs to step up from those guys on the roster right now if the Braves are going to be viable going forward?
Pretty much everybody, not Freddie, Ozzie, and Austin. One of Chip Cary's favorite speaking points this whole year is the bottom part of the order feeding the top. He actually talks about it every year, but it's been noticeable this year because nobody's doing it. So when you start getting to, say, Dansby hitting 5, Guillermo Heredia, who has just been an unbelievable story, Abraham Almonte, Kevin Smith, Ender Inciarte, whoever's hitting in that box down there between 5 through 8, they've got to start getting on base. They've got to take their walks. They've got to get guys over. Like, you can have some guys on a team that aren't contributing, but when it's half the lineup, like, look, I like Abraham Almonte as much as the next guy. I appreciate Kevin Smith's story, but they got to play. They got to perform. Josh Tomlin can't just throw 84-mile-per-hour meatballs. He's got to come to play. The guys in the bullpen, they got to buckle down. Tyler Matzik, nobody's spin rates in baseball have dropped more than his ever since they outlawed the spider tag. He's got to figure it out. Honestly, I hate to say that 88% of the roster needs to step up, but if you're not Freddie Freeman, Ozzie Albies, or Austin Riley, you could be doing more.
Doc Herbert joining us here on 3 and Out. And Doc, you look at this team, and when it comes to prospects, I know people say prospects are just that. Is there anybody that's on the verge that you think is untradeable for the Braves, whether it be William Contreras, whether it be Drew Waters, or as you said, is Alex Anthopoulos, if he reverts to old form, is like, hey, I'm in it to win it in the here and now. If it hurts me 3 years down the road, so be it.
I really think that even for as much as he struggled, I think this team believes in Christian Pache so much. I think that they would part with Waters before they would part with Pache. And I really do also think that Shea Langoliers, I think they look at him as the catcher of the future. And even for as good as Contreras' bat can be, I think that ultimately he moves off of the position. He's athletic enough to play the outfield. Don't tell anybody I said that, but I think he can handle it. But beyond that, I think you're looking at Christian Pache, Shea Langoliers, and Michael Harris being your three absolutely unmovable prospects. Michael Harris is, like, everybody was talking about Pache and Waters for the longest time being the future of the outfield. Michael Harris, he's going to start to rocket up top 100 lists. If Braves fans don't know him yet, if National Baseball fans don't know him yet, they will very soon. He is just dynamo. Beyond that, you trade anybody you can. And Waters might be great. You might wind up getting more of a career out of Drew Waters than whoever you trade for him. But sometimes, you can't make the omelet if you don't break some eggs.
Doc, I was going to ask you about some of those guys because we keep talking about trading for pieces in the outfield, but you just mentioned a bunch of outfielders there who have been playing outstanding in the minor leagues, but very much like we saw with Ozzie Albies and Ronald Acuna when they first came up, you don't want to lose that year of service time if you can help it. Do you think we see one of those guys playing significant time for the Braves as they come down the stretch at the end of the year?
Pache, I think so. He kind of lost his swing when he came up to the majors. The circumstances with Duvall getting hurt and then Pache just getting thrust into center field in the NLCS and actually looking like he belonged there, kind of. The results weren't great, but he didn't seem like he was too intimidated by it. And then when it rolled into this year, it just seemed like he had completely lost all of the good progress he had made on his swing. And he got hurt and went back to Gwinnett. And as soon as he was able to come back to the team, they sent him back to Gwinnett. They're like, no, you're going to stay here. You got to get your swing back. So I'm seeing some video of him down there. He looks better. He looks calm. He doesn't look like he's fidgeting. He looks like he did before he came up. So I could see him. Waters, I think, stays down the whole year. I think Harris gets promoted to Double-A pretty soon, but I think he's at least the middle of next year before he gets here. I wouldn't be surprised to see Contreras back at some point, but the league kind of figured him out a little bit and he started to press. So similar thing to Pache, just getting back there and knowing how to not panic when maybe you should.
Doc Herbert joining us here on 3 and Out. Doc, appreciate the time as we look forward to a Joc Pederson sighting at some point this weekend. We appreciate it. Thanks so much.
Hey, thanks, guys. We'll talk soon.
Appreciate it. Doc Herbert joining us, the Platinum Sombrero podcast, as the Braves and the Tampa Bay Rays coming up a little bit later.
You wanted to say Devil Rays, didn't you?
I did. I want to every time. Those are some old classic uniforms. Marlins. Yes. Florida Marlins, Tampa Bay Devil Rays. We've got more to come. Brandon Sudge, The Telegraph, will join us when we return. We're talking Georgia football with him here on 3 and Out. Great to be here on this Friday. Kevin Thomas, Christian Gokel filling in here on 3 and Out. Georgia going to be in the spotlight next week at SEC Media Days. Obviously, them and Alabama will likely be the favorites to meet up in Atlanta for the SEC championship game. And of course, Georgia's got Clemson awaiting out there in week number 1. Joining us here from the Macon Telegraph to talk about that and more, Brandon Suggs joins us here on 3 and Out. Brandon, welcome to the show. How are you?
Hey, guys. Thanks for having me on. I'm doing all right.
Hey, I appreciate you coming on. And certainly, I would imagine next week for Kirby Smart's going to be all about is it SEC championship, college football playoff, or bust here in 2021?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like every year in Hoover, it's the same type of thing, right? I mean, I feel like every year Kirby Smart's been the head coach at Georgia. The question is the same. I mean, is it going to be SEC championship, college football playoff, and anything less than that might end up falling a little bit short of people's expectations. So, I mean, I feel like it's the same thing in Hoover, but I mean, it'll be nice to go back to media days after not having it last year. It feels like we haven't had it in a long, long time. So it'll be nice to see everybody dressed up in their the nicest fits and coming around Hoover and talking to everybody. So I'm definitely looking forward to that on Tuesday.
You look at this Georgia team, and obviously, since Kirby Smart's taken over, you make the run of the Rose Bowl and national championship. College football playoff is the expectation for Georgia, but it feels like the expectations this year are a little bit more ramped up. How much of that do you put on the fact that you do have JT Daniels coming back, and you just had such a limited sample size with him, but what fans saw just got them excited because Georgia fans really haven't seen a downfield passing attack like that since Aaron Murray.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the whole quarterback situation is – I mean, I feel like that's the whole reason why the expectations are ramped up. I mean, if you think about it and if you look back at how they performed last year, I feel like if they would have settled out the quarterback situation early on, then they could have been able to have a run in the national championship. So I feel like Daniels was that one piece that they didn't have early on in the year that led to those losses against Florida and Alabama. So I feel like that's the whole thing, and that's the whole reason as to why those expectations are ramped up and why people think that Georgia's offense can elevate itself. However, I mean, there are a couple of questions you have, obviously. I mean, at wide receiver, George Pickens goes out with an ACL injury. You bring in Eric Gilbert out of LSU, who was a tight end, but now is expected to kind of make his way into that wideout role and kind of perform how Pickens ended out. At least that's Georgia's hope. And then on the other side of the ball, you lost a lot of bodies. You lost Tyson Campbell. You lost Derek Stokes. You lost Tyreek Stevenson. And it felt like, at least in the spring, you had Christopher Smith and Lewis Steen out there almost on an island. It was like it was them and a whole bunch of guys who were inexperienced. So, I mean, I feel like the fact that they added Darian Kendrick out of Clemson, who obviously starts off right away facing his old team. And then you had Heike Smith out of West Virginia. I mean, I feel like that they've been able to kind of fill some of those holes. That's a lot of I feel like that's where a lot of the questions will come from. I mean, at least on Kirby's end. I mean, it'll be around how do you guys kind of work around having these new faces and then all the while having these expectations.
Brandon Suggs, the Macon Telegraph, joining us here on 3 and Out. And Brandon, obviously you get a little more time here in 2021 than they got to work things in 2020. You think Todd Monken's offense is going to be a little bit different than what we saw in 2020? With JT Daniels fully healthy, ready to go. Do we see some wrinkles that maybe they just didn't have the time to get fully comfortable with or put in 2020?
Yeah, and I mean, I think that's what Kirby Smart told us in the spring. I mean, it's just the fact that coming into last year, JT Daniels didn't really know what to expect, and he didn't really have that relationship with Tom Monken yet. He didn't know really how he worked early on, and obviously in terms of the pandemic and having to navigate all that. I mean, I can imagine it was hard. But I feel like that you will see out of Tom Monken's offense what we saw towards the end of last season with a downfield passing attack. And I feel like in the running game, we might see some evolution with not only Zamir White, but Kendall Milton, with James Cook, and even a guy like Asian Edwards, along with the guys who are coming in. So, I mean, I feel like that's the thing that Georgia has at its advantage. It's just offensive options. And now another thing that I feel like not too many people are talking about is in terms of the offensive line. You know, I mean, you lost Ben Cleveland, and you lost Trey Hill. So obviously you have to – it's going to be a different type of a look on the line, I think. But Georgia has so much depth. I feel like they just add 5-star after 5-star on the line. So I feel like Georgia has the depth offensively, but it might be a couple of new faces. It might be a couple of different things from last year, just because Georgia is able to expand itself now with kind of Daniels at the helm without there being any questions of him losing it or any questions of injury.
I was going to ask you about that offensive line because for me, I think that's the key to Georgia's season. I think even with the loss of Pickens, you have so many weapons from wide receiver, tight end, running backs, and then JT Daniels as the trigger man. You have the skill guys, but you just don't win national championships without a great offensive line, right? We saw Alabama's offensive line last year and all the first-round pick talents they have there. LSU a couple years ago, right? Just unbelievable offensive line, right? Winning the Moorhead Award for the best offensive line in the country. Georgia, they have the talent, but also last year against Mississippi State, you're getting held to less than a yard a carry. Cincinnati shut down your run game in that game, right? You want to throw the ball around, but you have to be able to run the football. Do you think this unit's good enough to be championship level?
Yeah, I mean, I do. I mean, if you just look at all the talent that you have, as you said, I mean, if somebody gets injured, I feel like Georgia has the depth at that unit with younger guys like Xavier Truss, like Clay Webb, Owen Condon, Amarius Mims, guys like that who can just kind of step up. And is it going to be the easiest thing? No, because I mean, Georgia had all that experience, and experience is obviously important on the offensive line. However, I mean, I wouldn't be too quick to say, oh, well, Georgia doesn't have those pieces, because I feel like it's just something that they might have that we haven't seen yet. However, I mean, as you said, Mississippi State game, Cincinnati game, balance is one thing that Kirby Smart talks about all the time, as I'm sure y'all know. And I mean, as tired as the whole chop and wood type of thing is, I mean, it's kind of how they want to operate. I mean, Georgia has always been a run-first team, and they're always going to be a run-first team. So I feel like if that offensive line can kind of put it together early and show, and Georgia's able to show something up there early on, that will help them in the long run. But, yeah, I mean, it definitely is. I mean, it's a valid question to have, but I feel like just based on the roster, if you look at it and see that talent, I feel like there are many ways to where that line can kind of come together and perform as cohesively.
Finally here, Brandon, are we paying enough attention to how good Georgia's defensive line can be? Because I'm just looking at the frontline guys with Jordan Davis, Travon Walker, obviously Wyatt coming back is a huge get. But, I mean, you go too deep with guys who would start for most SEC schools. Are we paying enough attention to how good that unit could be?
No, I don't think people are, and I don't think people are paying enough attention to it over the last couple of years. I mean, I feel like even in the middle up front, you have Jordan Davis and Devontae Wyatt. How huge is it for Georgia that those guys came back? And I actually did an off-season chat with Trey Scott, and I talked to Jordan Davis a little bit, and both of those guys were telling me that Jordan and Devontae Wyatt, they have been going at it hand in hand all offseason. Like, they don't want anything less than dominance on front, and they feel like with their experience, their enhanced conditioning, and how they're working in the small areas, like how they're eating and other things like that, they feel like that they can be this dominant unit in the SEC. And I mean, I would not doubt them at this point, because you've seen what Jordan Davis is capable of, not only on the stat sheet, but how he does all the dirty work. So yeah, I mean, I feel like Georgia's defensive line earns a little bit more respect and a little bit more chatter than it's getting, but then again, Georgia has to show it with this new 2021 roster and how they can perform up front. But I do feel like one thing that would help Georgia is if they can give those guys a little bit more opportunity, because I know they like to rotate guys a lot, but I feel like there would be more continuity on the unit if they're able to kind of lead guys in and enhance that longevity in terms of how long they're able to produce on the field.
Brandon Sudge, the Macon Telegraph, our guest here on 3 and Out. Brandon, really appreciate the time. Thanks so much.
Yeah, of course. Thank you guys for having me. Have a good one.
Appreciate it. Brandon Sudge, the Macon Telegraph, joining us, talking some Georgia football here on a Friday afternoon. SEC Media Days right around the corner next week in Hoover, Alabama. Looking forward to that. We'll come back. Well, we'll see how bad I am at SEC trivia when we return here at 3 and Out on the Southern Pigskin Radio Network. Great to be here with you on this Friday. Kevin Thomas, Christian Gokel, glad you are with us here on the show. We'll get some great stuff here in the final hour of the program. BJ Bennett will join us. We'll talk SEC Media Days as he'll be with us for the final hour. We've got the exclusive on the coaches' walk-up songs for SEC Media Days. Really excited about that.
It's exciting. It is
so we'll
exciting.
get to that coming up in just a little bit. But it's not what I want to do on a Friday, but you're here to push my brain with SEC trivia. No looking it up. I'm not going to cheat.
No, I can see you when I'm doing it here, so we're good.
Go ahead. I guess lay it on me. I'm not even.
I think it's kind of just making fun of you, but also educating folks before we get to Media Days on some of the names they need to know ahead
kind of
this.
Making fun of me. That's what we're okay.
Kind of a little bit, because it's going to be fun. So we'll start with a nice, easy one, Kevin. Who's the SEC's leading returner as a passer?
I want to say that's
who did you want to say?
I want to say Matt Corral because he's getting all the early pub, but that's not correct. This feels like a trick question, but is it Bo Nix?
Is that your final answer?
I don't feel like that's right, but I feel like knowing how you ask questions, you want to trip me up. So I'm going to say Bo Nix.
Bo Nix is second place. Number one is Matt Corral. Kevin,
I talked myself out of it.
At 333 yards per game, 3,337 yards last year.
Talk myself out of the right answer.
Matt Corral is your leading.
So I didn't do good on the
passer.
SATs, apparently.
Yep, but Kevin, who is the only other quarterback outside of Matt Corral that's returning that averaged over 300 yards a game?
Well, then I guess that would be Bo Nix.
That is incorrect.
What?
Yeah, old Bo Nix averaged 219 yards per game. JT Daniels averaged 300.
Because we went on total yards and not just
307 yards per game in his return.
Oh, you got me.
Now, that's just completely messed with your mind.
No, I don't want to.
Who's the SEC East leading returning passer?
Just in like yards per game, or
no, just in total yards.
So it's not JT Daniels?
It is not JT Daniels.
This feels like another trick question. We got a new quarterback probably at Kentucky, Tennessee, South Carolina. Luke Doty is back, but did he throw for that many yards? New quarterback at Florida. I mean, is this a bag? Is it? Don't even tell me it's Ken Seals at Vandy. Like,
that was really close. He's actually number 2. It's Connor Bazelak.
Well, I always forget about Missouri. Like literally,
listen, Kevin,
like,
people who live in Missouri forget about Missouri. So
it's the show me state. And they're not showing me because
they aren't showing. Connor Bazelak as a true freshman last year, slung that ball around.
He had a good. I said yesterday, it sounds like an evil villain to me. And like a Marvel Connor Bazelak, like an evil doctor. Like he's like the corporate, the corporate evil guy where he's like, I own the business that's funding all the terrible research.
Has there ever been an
trying to take Spider-Man out?
Connor?
Maybe. I don't know. Isn't Conor McGregor the villain of UFC?
I don't know if he's the villain or people just kind of making fun of him at this point.
Whatever.
All right, let's move off the quarterbacks, Kevin. Talk about some receivers. The SEC lost their top 6 receivers last year.
Right.
All to the draft.
Don't tell me. I don't know.
They're all in the draft. Which receiver that is returning had the most yards last year?
I don't know. I'm lost.
You just want to throw a guess out there? That's better than nothing.
No, I don't want to throw a guess because it'll be completely off.
No, please throw a guess.
No, I don't want to.
Come on, just one. Just throw a guess.
A dude at Ole Miss. I don't know.
A dude at Ole Miss is the guess. That is incorrect, Kevin.
I'm sure there's a guy named
John Mechie. How hilarious is that? That 2 Alabama receivers were drafted.
I wasn't even thinking Alabama.
Yeah, so. 2 Alabama receivers drafted in the first round, and yet they still have the SEC's leading returner in receiving yards.
Again, talking myself out of a potential right answer.
Yeah, he has 916 receiving yards last year. Leader in yards.
That's crazy.
Yeah, leader in yards per game is Traylon Burks, though, at Arkansas.
I never would have gotten
that.
91.1
yards per game. Another guy to keep an eye out for, Keyshawn Butte at LSU as a freshman last year, 73.5 yards per game, 16.3 yards per catch. That's someone to watch out for. And quietly, Karis Jackson over 500 yards last year for Georgia, 50 yards a game there for him. All right, moving on to the running backs here, Kevin. 2 SEC running backs coming back that averaged over 100 yards per game last year. You should know one of them. I need two.
That averaged over 100 yards a game.
Yep.
I'm going to see if we have our list. Tank Bigsby and Kevin Harris. Kevin Harris was 113 yards a game.
Tank Bigsby, 83.4 yards per game. The number 2 is Isaiah Spiller. Yeah, him and Kevin Harris. Well, Kevin Harris, 113.8 yards per game. Isaiah Spiller out of Texas A&M, 103.6 yards per game for Isaiah Spiller. So, I mean, hey, listen, I'll give you a half a point there.
That's right. I pseudo-cheated because we had a list of our top running backs that we were going to talk about.
You did. All right, there's a school in the SEC that returns 2 tacklers that had over 100 tackles last year.
Either very good linebackers or they played an awful lot of defense.
And not a great front seven for this school.
Had two guys on the same team had over 100 tackles?
100 tackles.
And Vanderbilt only played 10 games, so that would be 10 tackles a game.
This team only played 10 games.
They did.
They did. I'm not lying to you. I wouldn't do that, Kevin.
South Carolina.
Not
was
even
it
close.
Vanderbilt?
It's Arkansas. Got Grant Morgan and Bumper Pool coming back, baby.
You know, I just thought with Arkansas and like they kind of were a good 50-50 mix, run the ball, kept some scores down that maybe they didn't play enough defense to get 2 guys with 100 tackles, but wrong again.
Kevin, I appreciate you though.
Yeah, I'm trying. It's fine.
Now it's
all off the top of your head. So
this school is the only school with 2 tacklers returning that had over 10 tackles for loss last year.
Has 2 guys returning that had 10 tackles for loss last season.
Yep.
It seems like.
Don't overthink it.
Alabama.
That's it.
I was going to say, it seems like it would be Alabama, but.
Don't overthink it, man. Christopher Allen had 13 tackles for loss last year. Will Anderson also bagged 10.5.
Because I think Florida had a couple, but they lost a couple. So I was like, well, I know Florida's defense.
Yeah,
was
Brent
better
Cox is back. He had 9.5 for them, and Zachary Carter had 9.5 as well. So they were close. But honestly, I even miswrote that question, Kevin, because Alabama has 3. Because Henry To'oTo'o joined Alabama, he had 10.
He's not returning. He is joining. So.
No, but I mean, I think that's a good point by you with Florida, right? Because Ventrell Miller's coming back. He had 7.5 tackles for loss. Zachary
I knew they
Carter,
were close. Yeah.
As I mentioned, had 9.5 as well as Brenton Cox. So, I mean, Florida got a pretty dang.
I was actually like I said, that's why I was leaning Florida, and then when you said don't overthink it, it steered me away from there because I was like, Florida's defense. I remember reading a piece. It was like, hey, they had some guys that were really good tackles for loss last year. Lost a few pieces, but I was like, did they have 2 or 3 guys in it? I wasn't sure, but good misdirection to send me back to Alabama. Thank you.
I appreciate you, Kevin. All right, let's get back to a little history here in the SEC to try to give people the proper scope. Kevin, which team has the least amount of wins in the SEC over the last decade?
I've seen BJ do this for southernpigskin.com because he's like, it's a good historical framework where people think teams do this, that, and then you match them up over the last decade because I am like pretty sure it's not Vanderbilt because like that's the rub a lot of times when you do those things and it's not Vanderbilt. It's actually somebody else with the fewest wins. Is it fewest wins total? Just SEC wins. Did I hear you correctly?
Fewest wins in the SEC.
So fewest wins in the SEC. I don't think it's Vanderbilt, despite them going over. I'm going to say it's either Ole Miss or Arkansas. I'm pretty sure. I'm going to go Arkansas.
You ever thought it's Vanderbilt? 21-60 over the last 10 years.
I've because I know, like I said, and maybe it's just wins, period. But
Let's try this.
I've seen BJ do this exercise before, and he's like, surprisingly, Vanderbilt is not the worst, and now they are the worst. So
let's do the last 5 years, Kevin.
Oh, was that an actual question? Or
least amount of wins over the last 5. That was over the last decade. Vanderbilt 21.
Is that Arkansas? Because Arkansas went 2 years with no SEC.
Arkansas over the last 5 years 7-35. Over the last 3 years 3-23.
Ouch.
In the SEC. Now, Kevin, I need an answer to this one. Which of these teams has the fewest amount of wins over the last 5 years in the SEC? Mississippi State, South Carolina, or Tennessee?
Wow, they're all like in that average range. Mississippi State, South Carolina, or Tennessee. Last how many?
5 years. Last half a decade.
I'm going to say, man, that's I know I'm running out. I'm going to say, like, my gut tells me it's South Carolina, but I'm going to say Tennessee.
You nailed it. Tennessee. Over the last 5 years, just 14 wins in the SEC. Over the last 10 years, Kevin, Tennessee behind Ole Miss, Mississippi State, Missouri, South Carolina, and Auburn in SEC wins.
Good.
It's been a rough decade.
I went away with my gut, which that time paid out for me.
It's been a rough decade for the Volunteers.
Absolutely. Anymore? Am I good? I think I actually held my own, sort of.
We got a couple seconds, Kevin. Who has more wins over the last 10 years in the SEC, Georgia or LSU?
LSU does.
Georgia.
No, really? Wow.
62 wins to LSU's 57.
Wow, so a pretty good margin there for Georgia with more wins. That's a good SEC quiz. I didn't struggle as bad and sound as stupid as I thought I might when it was all said and done. We'll come back. We got much more to get to here on 3 and Out on this Friday afternoon all across the Southern Pigskin Radio Network. Hit us up on Twitter at Pigskin Radio. Great to be here with you on this Friday. Kevin Thomas, Christian Gokel. We'll have BJ Bennett joining us here for the final hour of 3 and Out in just a little bit. But the Braves and the Tampa Bay Rays tonight, Joc Pederson, Brian Sicker saying just a few minutes ago, will not be in the starting lineup, should arrive at sometime during the game and is available to come off the bench. Moving forward, though, he's going to be batting leadoff and playing right field. So he is filling the Ronald Acuna role on your baseball team.
Over under 0.5 ABs for one Joc Pederson tonight, Kevin.
I think if he's there, they're going to put him in. Unless it's like 15-2, he'll get one. Yeah, over.
So you're taking that over?
I'm taking he's getting in the ball game tonight, yes.
All right, so Charlie Morton's on the bump.
Yep.
It's going to be a tough matchup.
Yep.
But
they all are tough.
I was going to say, but no one else I think right now you'd rather have leading off this second half of the season than one Charlie Morton. I think over the past 6-7 starts, my guy's starting to round into shape a little bit.
Yeah, he's been very, very good, and I think you feel like he's going to give you a chance to win the ball game if your offense can do a little bit, and that's all you need it to do with Charlie Morton right now. And again, I think getting Joc Pederson out there, at least you have the threat of somebody that's able to put runs on the board where, no offense to the outfield you're running out there to start with tonight. That's just not there. Not that guys can't do it, but it's just not there.
Better.
What?
It's only going to get 33% better.
Well, would you rather 0% better?
Still,
I'm just saying. So I will take that over. What you have is your fallback options. I think certainly in right field, you'll be better. And again, we'll see what
that's coming up later. But I wanted to ask you very important questions because next up we're doing our hugely important,
very important
coaches walk-up music for SEC Media Days. So
we've been privy to that.
Coach Kevin is walking in to Media Days.
Yeah.
What's his walk-up song?
It's a great question. I feel like I didn't really have a lot of time to think about this, but I feel like
spot.
Yeah, I feel like there's different things. Like if I'm getting ready to go do something big, I want some hard music, like some AC/DC or something like that. Throwback back in the day. I feel like for me, you can't go wrong with a little Leonard Skinner. It would be cliche to drop "Sweet Home Alabama" in there, so you can't. Yeah, you can't do that.
We need one.
I'll go with "Call Me the Breeze." I like that.
Call Me the Breeze is where we're going. All right, quickly. I need one for BJ and one for Ben.
BJ's tough because depends on what kind of quirky mood. What would you say? Like I said, you're throwing me on the spot here, so I'm trying to. There's so many songs running through my head.
BJ, just go to the Starbucks playlist on Spotify and pull off one of those indie rock songs, or
just something kind of light,
something singer-songwriter, and he's good to go.
Maybe some Long Beach Dub All Stars. That's a BJ Bennett kind of band that he kind of digs on the side. Ben, I think you just play the Gator Chomp, man. If you're walking through SEC Media Day, no, I'm saying,
Ben, I got "You Got It Bad" by Usher.
That's probably good. That's probably a good choice. I'm thinking, but he's a former player, walking in, just Gator Chomp him right behind him.
Just hearing Ben sing in the office, "You Got It Bad." Yeah. Oh yeah.
We've got more to come here on 3 and Out. As we said, we'll get to the walk-up music and more final hour. It's 3 and Out, Southern Pigskin Radio Network.